Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. So welcome back to another segment of the Cannon Project. I think this episode 6 now, level 6. Yeah, we're waiting for the original Godfather himself to join us. But no doubt you'll recognize my good brother Isaac, who was my partner in crime throughout the whole of summer last year when the pandemic hit off. But yeah, we're just waiting for Eltel, the Godfather, and we've got some serious debating to be had in this segment of the Cannon Project. But as usual, we'll get into this one on the other side of this music intro. Yes. Welcome back to Cannon Fodder on this the 6th episode of the Cannon Project. Make sure you guys subscribe so you can be part of the community over here on Cannon FODDER TV. We're just waiting for Eltel, the original Godfather, to join the crazy house over here on Cannon FODDER TV. But before we get into that, Isaac, how are you?
I'm doing good, brother. How is everyone in the Cannon Fodder community?
Yeah, everyone who is firing on all cylinders, man. Yes, all guns blazing over here. So, yeah, you told me that before we went live. It's quite cold in Kenya, man.
It's very, very cold over here.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Okay. Oh, well, listen, the Godfather's just entered the building.
Hey. Well, I've been uphill and down dale since last time I saw you. I half climbed a mountain yesterday in celebration for Tim's team winning a county final, which was absolutely fantastic. A tactical masterpiece, and he had these guys so fit and so skillful. But it just is lovely to be back amongst the grassroots of the game and see the little ones enjoying themselves. And with immense skill and teamwork, you know, Tim and I were talking about it afterwards, and the immense teamwork that team sports give the kids that take part in it. And these guys don't do it for anything other than the honour of their village or their town. And you can multiply that by all the little clubs around Ireland, and I'm sure all the little clubs around England too. So never mind elite sport, it's always great to see the little ones, you know, bringing back the memories of why we all got involved in sport.
Yeah, but you know what, Delta, I know I said this to you, but Isaac is managing his own football team as well. Isaac, do you want to talk about that very quickly, Isaac, before we go into? Go on, Isaac.
Thank you for the chance. Eltel, I have my own football club in Kenya. We call the Super Lions. We are in the lower tier in the football association in Kenya. So we started this year, so we are doing relatively well, as I can say. So we are trying to incorporate the young ones into football, and also we also teach them life skills, because life is not all about football. They also have to learn about life. They have also to understand what life entails.
There is some good news coming out, but I can't actually divulge what that news is. It's something to do with Cannon Fodder and Isaac's project out there in Kenya. So I can't actually say anything until it's ratified. But what I do want to say is that when I was a youth worker, 2007, for a couple of years, we used to take the children to Underhill. Do you remember Barnet's old home ground, Tel?
Yeah, I do. I do remember that.
And at that time, when we used to take the kids there, it was free to see the reserves play football. And I've got to say, that was one of the defining memories I have of grassroots football, Tel. And the kids, we took them there maybe twice over the period of like 1 month. But they really, really enjoyed watching the reserves at that time playing for free. I mean, they didn't realize it was free. They just thought, oh, you know, I've got to pay all the money. But just to see, you know, grassroots football being played there, Tel, was so enjoyable. And like, you look at football now, like we said last week, it's big business, isn't it? It's big business, you know. But
well, I can tell you yet another funny story about Underhill. when one of my ones was very little and probably a toddler and in a pushchair, Arsenal played a pre-season game there. And in some of the early pre-seasons, they don't play the full team, but they play some of the first team. And I remember we were playing against Barnet at Underhill, and they had Kerry Dixon, who had been a centre forward for Chelsea in years gone by. So anyway, we turned up at the turnstiles where the away supporters go, the Arsenal people, and whichever child we had with us was fast asleep in the pushchair. And the man on the gate, he was a right wit, he said, I've heard of boring Arsenal, but you guys are asleep before you even come in.
Oh, those are the good old days, Phil. Those are the good old days.
Yeah, all the 1-0 wins, all the 1-0 wins, boring Arsenal.
All right, so let's get into a new segment, and of course, I'll be asking Eltel and my good friend Isaac for their input before we get to the main segment. I want to talk about Thierry Henry and Mikel Arteta. So first up, there's been some updates in regards to the injury to Granit Xhaka. I remember Mikel Arteta saying that, listen, we know that Granit Xhaka is going to be out of 3 months. However, Granit Xhaka will probably turn that 3 months into 2 months. But on the Gunners official website, there is an update ahead of the match later on tonight, saying that Granit Xhaka is making good progress in the initial stages of his recovery from a medial knee ligament injury sustained on September the 26th. The current aim is for Granit to be back in full training early in the new year. Despite limited minutes this season, the 28-year-old has impressed, building a strong campaign last term, one that saw actually, however, Arteta's team finishing 9th in the league. Now, there is some news in regards to David Seaman. David Seaman has said that he thinks that Arsenal have turned the corner. I was thinking, David Seaman, are you supporting the same team? Now, are you guys aware that David Seaman is now part of the coaching team? Well, actually, he's behind the scenes, being one of the coaches. And I'm thinking, I'm a little bit cynical. I'm thinking he said that Arsenal have turned the corner because he's on the payroll at Arsenal, Isaac.
There's a segment we did sometimes back. I told you we got ourselves a doctor from PSG who's a magician in treating injuries. I remember that vividly. And I told you, if he's going to do as well as he was doing in PSG, we'll be getting our players fit as quick as possible. It will be great news for Arsenal, or for us to have Granit back, because yes, we sometimes we do miss Granit because of his leadership and experience. You understand, you cannot always win games with kids in your team. Sometimes you have to bring in experience so that you get that cutting edge.
Okay, Godfather, what do you think? Do you think because David Seaman's on the payroll, he has to toe the line?
Well, yeah, and any company you work for, any institution, if you're a good professional, you toe the line. So I would take that with the biggest pinch of salt you can find. We haven't turned the corner. I've turned the corner. I've gone into the west wing of this house. I was a bit earlier. So if anybody's turning a corner, it's me. But there's no way we've turned the corner yet. It's a work in progress. It's what you call, I think you'd appreciate this, a project. It's a project. In fact, you thought of it first, Alex. You should have done a registration on that. They wouldn't be able to say they've turned the corner in the project. But no, we haven't turned the corner yet. We've made a few very good, very astute signings, but we've got a long way to go. Tonight, I know you're going to talk about it later. Tonight's match is no foregone conclusion. It's 11 against 11, and you've got to pull out your best, as Tim said to his charges. You've done all the hard work in training, but you've still got to give your best on the day. And I suspect we have a few passengers. I happen to light upon, fans might enjoy this story. a story of Paul Merson talking about players being passengers. And of course, players do sometimes, you know, take it easy and not work hard when they should. And Paul Merson's hardest opponent was Stuart Pearce of Nottingham Forest, hard man Stuart Pearce. And they dreaded George Graham calling out the team because both were wingers, Paul Merson and Perry Groves, and neither of them wanted to be on the right wing because they'd be up against the hard man Stuart Pearce of Nottingham Forest and England. Anyway, Paul Merson drew the short straw, and he was playing up against Pearce, didn't get a kick, nothing. And then there was a corner to Arsenal, and they funneled back, both him and Perry Groves funneled back, and he just happened to find himself on the right-hand side of the penalty area as the ball was cleared. So he thought, great, you know, I'm going to run across the pitch with the ball so that I'm where Grovesy should be. So he got the ball and he ran across the pitch with it and up towards the Nottingham Forest goal. And as he looked to his left, who's running beside him but Grovesy? And George Graham shouting to the two of them, one of you on the right and the other one on the left. So both of them avoided it. And listen, players do. Players hide. I think Arteta has said this many times. He doesn't want players that hide. And I've watched players hide. We've all done that. You can see it on their face. They don't fancy it. I mean, I wouldn't fancy playing centre-back against Lukaku for a start. You know, you'd have to take several pain-killing injections just to start the game, I would have thought.
Actually, tell a quick question. You know, would Tim leave the club he currently manages of the children to manage Arsenal?
I did ask him that.
Would Isaac leave?
I suppose the phrase is everybody's got a price. But he did tell me he did help with the training and the coaching of the adult team in Clare. He did do some help with that. And personally, as a fan of both field sports, both soccer and hurling, I would say there are many differences, but there are many similarities too. And I'm going to have a chat with Tim. I'll go around there tonight to watch the Palace match. And at some stage, we'll probably sit down and chat about tactics and how you stretch the pitch. And of course, if you've read all the Michael Cox books, I think the one I gave you, and all the other, you know, coaching manuals, they all mention about stretching the pitch laterally and vertically. And of course, the offside rule is beautiful. Excuse me, because it allows you to stretch the pitch vertically in different ways. You can play a high line, you can play a deep block, and so on. And that without the offside law, I know it's always difficult, but you'd have a completely different game because you'd have what we used to call at school goal hangers, guys who just stand up by the opposition goalkeeper and hope the ball comes near them. And you could say that in a way, Lukaku and that type of bruising centre forward is a modern day hybrid of that style of player who pushes people around. Oh, the other quick thing I really must mention, and if the three of us go back to our childhood days, do you remember when we'd be playing for the school or just in the schoolyard, and you were allowed to shoulder bar? You were allowed to, you know, as long as it's shoulder to shoulder and fair, the ref accepted it. Well, they've still got that in hurling, and it's wonderful because you haven't got this stand-up game. We aren't meant to be watching snooker and the ball pinging around. We're actually watching 11 guys or 11 women, whoever it is, against 11 guys, 11 women. And part of the joy of it is what you see in rugby, which is that people can kind of use their strength, use their weight to push the other guy off the ball. So I would love if they brought back the fair shoulder bar into the game. and let's get a bit of excitement, and let's get a bit of, you know, strength back into it. I think you can lose the sort of magic of it if you don't keep that as one of the ingredients. I'm not talking about fouling. I mean, if you foul in hurling, it's very, very serious. It's because you're walking about with a piece of timber. You can hurt somebody badly. So I'm not talking about fouling, but let's this just as a side thing. Why not bring back the shoulder barge?
Right. Isaac, would you leave your current managerial position to manage Arsenal? Oh.
Has been my club since childhood. It will be a dream to manage Arsenal. Always a gunner.
Yeah.
Someone who's always a gunner will always want to associate with the club.
Okay. So is that a yes then?
That is a yes.
You're in.
He's in.
Get him in quick.
I'll send my application.
Say again, Isaac.
I'll send my application.
All right, okay. I'll send it in for you, Isaac. Don't worry about that. All right, next segment we'll talk about is this midfielder. Yes, Guendouzi apparently scored over the weekend. Yeah, scores one, creates two goals to help his team to beat Laurent 4-1. When I saw this picture, actually, the one thing that came back flashing by, was his hair. I used to have hair like that. Where's it all gone? Did you used to have hair like that, Hotel? Long flowing hair?
My wife still has hair like that. I did. And funny enough, a friend of mine, I had straight hair, but a friend of mine rocked up to this place in the Minories near the Tower of London, and there was always good bands playing there. And he saw this fella on keyboards with hair like mine, but permed. And he said, "Tell, did you ever get your hair permed?" And I said, "Yeah, that's why it all went." But actually, no, I didn't get my hair permed. Unlike Alan Sunderland, of course, who's normally straight hair, he had his hair permed. Kevin Keegan. But you know, the funny thing about our permed friend there is he seems to have matured. You know, and when he did that terrible thing of grabbing somebody by the throat when we were playing Brighton, and obviously Arteta tore him off a strip, we both said, yourself and me at the time, that probably was not the way to handle it. If you're going to tear him off a strip, pull him aside when it's all. Wenger would have done this. Wenger would have let 24 hours, 48 hours go by and talked the whole thing through and said, "Son, you have to grow up. You can't do that. You're playing for Arsenal." By the looks of it, he's playing well. I mean, do you know the one thing I would give him? Do you remember the old thing we used to have at school called a protractor? You know, yeah, I'd give him a Christmas present of a teacher's version of that, which is a big wooden thing, right? That they used to slap up on the blackboard. Because the only thing I found wrong with his game, apart from the fact he'd grab people by the throat when it suited him, was he'd go off at an angle of like 65 degrees with the ball instead of going forwards, instead of going straight forwards, like sort of, you know, towards the goal. And he'd head off in some kind of wild, acute angle off into the distance. And from what I get, wouldn't he? Do you remember? He was so determined to hold on to the ball, he wouldn't go forwards. He wouldn't go sideways. He'd go kind of half sideways, you know. And I put it down to his hair in his eyes at the time. But
then he doesn't need a protractor. He needs a compass, then, doesn't he?
To be honest, I probably hit him with one of them big teacher's protractors. Knock a bit of sense into him. But you know what? He could mature. He, you know, we've all had, you know, when we were young, we all did crazy things. I don't remember grabbing anybody by the throat. But, you know, he played for France, didn't he? Didn't France call him up?
I think he's had a couple of senior call-ups. Yeah. So
obviously people are, you've got to. It's like your own children, and they do silly things and they do things wrong, and you have to pull them aside. But you don't pull them aside in front of their mates. You pull them aside and you talk about it. And there isn't a person on the planet who hasn't made mistakes. So don't destroy the guy, but and certainly never do it in front of his friends. But take him aside and say, and say, we've got to do something about this. And he's still on our books, I believe. Yeah. So I wonder whether let's see what happens between now and the end of the season. And if he proves to be maturing, and I'm trying to think of Arsenal players that were absolutely wild and crazy and calmed down. I mean, Peter Storey was famous for being wild, but he stayed crazy as well. Charlie George, yeah. Charlie George was a bit of a crazy man. And do you know Charlie George, when he was in the reserves, had what we would nowadays call a skinhead haircut? And it was only when he got into the first team, he grew those long lanks, But, and funny enough, he had many would argue he had his best days with Derby County. He scored, I think, was it 3 or 4 goals against Real Madrid? So, yeah, were there any other players that were like wild? And I think Van Persie was, for a while. He
Really?
was a bit of a wild man. Yeah, right back in the early days. But that'd be an interesting thing for anybody listening in now. Try and think of one of our players over the last 20, 30 years that sort of began as a bit of an enfant terrible, if we're going to make this very cultural.
Don't do that.
No. Sorry about that. And actually, behind me, it looks like I've got the curtains at the Royal Albert Hall behind me, or the London Palladium or something. Do you remember Alfie looked like he was on a submarine and he had the punk behind him? Well, I'm at the London Palladium as I talk.
VIP seating. Isaac, your thoughts on Guendouzi? Is he like the change of attitude for you?
There was a tweet earlier today that I read. Mikel was asked if it is over for Guendouzi, and funny enough, he said that Guendouzi is currently on loan and that he can say that he has played the last game for Arsenal. So I see there is some change of heart in Arteta on Guendouzi. Funny enough, like 2 to 3 weeks ago, Guendouzi grabbed someone by the throat. Marseille. At Marseille. I believe the manager at Marseille handled him differently to the way at Mikel handled him. So I believe there is some sense of maturity. Number one, responsibilities will always come with maturity. He's now a dad. So he's got to grow up and leave the kid stuff to his kid and become mature. And now that he's a dad, he has a family, I believe he's maturing up. And what I like about him is his fighting spirit. He'll always bully other players. He'll always carry the ball. And he is a good player, but he needs patience. If you're not patient with him, you probably show him the door the next day.
So do you think he needs like a father figure to guide him, Isaac? Is he missing that father figure? Stroke manager?
Yes, he does. Yeah? He does. I was talking to an Arsenal fan here in Kenya, and he said Guendouzi misses Unai. He was his father figure. That is he misses Unai, was his father figure, and while playing under Unai, he didn't misbehave. He misbehaved while playing under Arteta.
That is a good point. That is a very good point.
He misses a father figure. So someone was saying he's not nostalgic. So he needs someone who will guide him Unlike Arteta, if you get on his wrong side, you're done.
Yeah.
If we go back to history, the team Arteta inherited 2 years ago is very different to the team he has right now. If you compare, only a few people are still in that team. He's let go of some characters that were there. He's benched some. He's cancelled contracts. So it is now that you can say he has his own team. If you get one thing about Arteta is I like him to improve on is his man management skills. That is where he failed. Unlike Wenger, you will fight with him in the dressing room and he still play you. He still give you that game time. But if you fight with Mikel, you don't get any game time.
Well, that's a really good point you made there. Maybe, yeah, Guendouzi is missing that father figure in Unai Emery. Tell.
Yeah, I was just wondering there when Isaac kept going, is he sitting in the bottom of a torpedo tube? just to keep the submarine thing going. If somebody presses a button, he's gone.
Well, it's a good thing I'm sitting in my kitchen. Oh, no.
You're really the funny one.
So, Isaac, do you want to say something, Isaac?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sitting in my living room, actually. You can see that is my living room.
Oh, thank God for that. No. If your mate presses the button, you're gone.
The evidence is there, Tell.
I think we'll have to convene. You can go down to Gravesend in Kent, and they have a nuclear submarine down there. You can do a tour of. I think we should do a tour of it. We do a Cannon Fodder summer outing next summer.
All right, let's continue with the news themes. There's one more before we get into the main segment. Within the last couple of hours, the English FA have been punished. UEFA have punished the FA for the lack of order and discipline inside and around the stadium, for the invasion of the field of play, for throwing objects, and for the disturbances during the national anthems. Yeah, during the Euros. So well, England FA have received €100,000 punishment for lack of control at the Euros. So yeah, it's just serious stuff. 100,000.
Well, I think we've seen a wave of nationalism crossing certain countries in Europe, and it's a real shame, because you should be able to support your country without deciding to fight anybody who doesn't support your country, and that's in the spirit of interculturalism, and that is worrying. I mean, we were in Rome a few years ago, and we were heading back to our hotel, and I said to my wife, "Do you fancy a quick nightcap? You know, a quick drink in the pub here?" And we found one called Ultras, ULTRAS, and she said, "Oh, there you are." And I went, "No, we won't be going into the Ultras, you know." And because if they heard us speaking English, I don't know, they might have been all right, but I wouldn't be kind of setting myself up for a problem. And if these people think they're being patriotic, I can tell them now, you aren't being patriotic. Okay, enjoy the match. If you're an England supporter, enjoy the game. I hope your team wins, but don't start punch-ups and don't start fighting just because the team that you're playing, obviously, if it's an international match, it's going to be a team from somewhere else. What is the point of that? That's misplaced nationalism or misplaced patriotism, and the world has no space for that. But it is a worry. We did go through, was it the 70s and 80s, where there were lots of fights inside grounds and outside grounds. And when they cured it in the ground because they put so many police officers in, which the club had to pay for, then the
Whoops. I think we've lost. Tell's been sunk by the signal. Tell.
I think somebody pressed the torpedo button there.
It wasn't me, Tell.
It was the International Space Station again. It just went over.
All right, okay. Let's get into the main segment of the evening, and that's the I wouldn't say is ongoing debate. Is it ongoing debate? Well, last week, one of the segments that I picked up on was Thierry Henry. He said that Thierry Henry says he's not sure if things are going in the right direction for Arsenal under Mikel Arteta, despite the revival. Now, Henry said he watched Arteta's men cling on to, for an undeserved point in the draw against Brighton, then dropped back below Spurs into the bottom half of the Premier League table. And he, in his own words, he said, I don't know if things are going in the right direction. I watched the Brighton game. Did you watch it? I've seen us beat Norwich before, winning at Burnley, beating Tottenham at home, because we always beat Tottenham at home. I was more than happy when we beat Tottenham as we were on a good run. But I was waiting to see a performance away from home against a team that passes the ball well. And instead, we suffered. Now, I've seen some comments floating around on Twitter sphere as well on the channel. And people are saying, well, you've got to think that Thierry Henry has an agenda. His agenda is he's part of this coming together with Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira, and Daniel Ek, Spotify guy. Isaac, does Thierry Henry have an agenda, or is it just an opinion that he's giving?
I look at it in two perspectives. He's the one person who's been pushing for Daniel Ek to become the new owner of Arsenal. But again, you look at it from Arteta's side. If I was Arteta, I wouldn't want Daniel Ek to be the new owner, because definitely he'll have Thierry Henry as his new manager. He'll lose his job. Thierry Henry, to me, he's the mouthpiece of the four of them. He started with the Kronk family. Now he is on Arteta. That he doesn't see where the process is taking us. Personally, I've started to see where the process is taking us. He's been a manager in several clubs. If he's saying he doesn't see where the project is taking us, I'll ask him, what did he do at Monaco? When he went to manage Monaco, Monaco had sold its best players, and they were in a rebuild phase. He didn't stabilize Monaco. At the end of the day, there was a report out that there was a mutual agreement for him to part ways with the club. There wasn't any mutual agreement. He was sacked. But most clubs nowadays try to cover that shame by saying there was a mutual agreement. So when I was looking at the team Mikel inherited 2 seasons ago, and the team that he has right now, most people will criticize him. He's young, he's not experienced. But I have come to give him my respect and my support because of what has changed in this team so far. When you look at his own signings and the way they have performed, they are doing exceptional. So to me, Thierry Henry Everybody is entitled to his opinion, and it is just his opinion. So let him just have his opinion. But I trust in Arteta, and I'll give him my support. Let him have his time. If we sacked Arteta today, and he went to another club and won, let's say the Premier League with that club, will we be regretting the same way we sent Unai packing and he won the Europa League?
But Isaac, do you not see the managerial position for Arsenal legends as a poison chalice? I would personally, I wouldn't want to see any of the Invincibles manage Arsenal. I mean, look how we've treated, like you said, how we treated Unai Emery, Fred Lundberg for a short period of time, and now Mikel Arteta. So, do you think it would be a wise move if Daniel Ek were to buy Arsenal to put Thierry Henry in the hot seat at Arsenal, Isaac?
One thing I'm sure of, if Daniel Ek bought Arsenal, he'll have a new manager. He'll not keep Arteta. He'll probably bring in Thierry Henry because he's his greatest fan, and he knows he has been a manager. He's not just been a footballer. He's been a manager in Monaco. He's been a manager in Montreal. He's been an assistant manager at Belgium, and I believe he's currently an assistant manager at Belgium. So he knows that he is experienced. Perhaps one of the reasons why Daniel Ek decided to associate with him, he is an Arsenal legend, and he's been a coach, so he knows what football is about.
But so I mean, if you're looking at the experience, then doesn't Thierry have a claim to have more experience than Mikel Arteta? As much as it was failed at Monaco, couldn't you say literally Thierry has more experience than Mikel Arteta? No?
Thierry has more experience than Arteta, but what has he learned in his managerial time? He also at Montreal, something funny enough is that there was also a mutual agreement for him to leave the club. So everywhere he goes is a mutual agreement for him to leave the club. So will it also be a mutual agreement for him to leave his managerial position at Arsenal?
That's a good one, Isaac. Yeah, I give up, man. I give up. Does Henry have an agenda?
Well, you know, obviously he wants to be part of a new Arsenal, and remember he's paid for his opinions. You know, I'm not particularly interested in Henry's opinions, to be honest. He was a wonderful footballer, but I'd much rather listen to somebody who had been a successful coach or manager give their thoughts on that area, that area. I was thinking, actually, if you think about it, all the managers we've had have had at least some experience behind them that was successful, and they weren't asked to sort of leave by mutual whatever. You know, we had Herbert Chapman, who won the league 3 times with Huddersfield before he signed for Arsenal. We had George. I suppose you could say Bertie Mee didn't have experience, but he had Dave Sexton behind him, who was very good. We had George Graham, who had been pretty successful at Millwall and had fantastic knowledge of Division 2, as it was in those days. And he picked up some marvellous defenders. He picked up Lee Dixon, Nigel Winterburn, Stevie Bold. He picked those 3 up for a song. And then we had Wenger, who had a lot of experience with Monaco. When I think it was Marseille, we're doing all kinds of underhand skullduggery and buying matches and buying games. And then he had the experience out in Japan. So we've now got Arteta with minimal experience. Now, as we've said, he has made massive glaring errors, like selling out that wonderful Emi Martinez goalkeeper, but he's learning on the job. And I'm sure if he's honest when he writes his memoirs, he'll say that the selling of Martinez was completely wrong. But you know, we have him now, and my biggest worry is that with the influx of the Saudi money, the days of Arsenal spending at or living at the top table are going to be very, very few. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when we broke the UK British transfer record when we bought Malcolm McDonald from Newcastle, of all teams. 333 million he cost us, and he was a fantastic player. Sorry, did I say million? £333,000, 33 pence or whatever it was at the time. But we definitely broke the sort of UK transfer record. Well, that's not going to happen again. And I'd hate to think that all we're really watching is the big boys playing and we're on the side, but that may happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Isaac, good point. By mutual agreement, every position. All right, guys, let's go into the live chat for the first time, maybe the last time actually. We've got DWTT says a good afternoon, Alex, Isaac, and LTL. Come on, you Gunners. And
Hey.
we've got Ian this is hi, Canon FODDER TV, and everyone watching. Hope you're all well. I'm managing to get my arm out of the sling now. Oh, Eastern Clarum. Greetings to all from Moines, Gareth, Island, Seaman, mining his position in Arsenal. But imagine what those in Newcastle have to do to keep the bosses happy. Of course, Newcastle lost, didn't they? They lost. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So, is that one of yours? One of yours in the chat?
I probably know him actually, but sort of my note is in this area. And he obviously wants to keep it quiet, although I think I know who it is. In fact, I'll be round at Tim's now for the match at 8 o'clock. I know he was working today, but it's been a delight working with him. He's an absolute master of the tactics and the training. And you can see when you watch other people training a team sport, you can see what makes a great trainer, and it's a combination of the tactics, being able to look microscopically at certain skills and certain teamwork moves and drills, and then finally getting the sort of the young people motivated. And it's been a delight to sort of work alongside him, and it's my dream really to see Scariff Ogonolo win a county title. It's been absolutely fantastic, and what it means to an area. I mean, we've all seen when Arsenal win and the team go up to the town hall and so on. Well, these young under-13 lads did 3 laps of Scariff, and everybody was waving from doors and stuff. And it's wonderful to see grassroots sport like that. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And there's one from Ian Tell for you. Wow, no hat or sunglasses, LTL.
Yeah, now I'm going incognito today. I could walk into the worst bar in London and they wouldn't recognise me. But if I put the hat and sunglasses on, I'm straight. I'm pushed up against the wall straight away.
Isaac, there's a question for you from the English Conversation Club. Even lads, question for Isaac: should Arsenal try and buy more African players?
We have African players. It's not that we don't have African players, and I've always liked the fact that Arsenal has always had African players in its books. We have Partey, we have Auba. Who else? Yeah, Elneny. Yeah, we do have African players. I wouldn't say only by African players. What I will say is by players who will improve the club. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Okay, that's a good shot actually. I've got Gundam News from an Arsenal fan services. Alex, good evening, Gundam News. Now the question about players who are a little bit off the rails, a little bit of bit boisterous. Ian says Wiltshire. Was Wiltshire a bit of a
A little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Then he goes on to say, "What's up, Eltel and Isaac?" And Russ says, "Vieira." Vieira?
He was, you know.
Yeah.
Vieira was a toughie. Vieira's reputation of being a toughie and Petit alongside him meant that once everybody knew what those guys could do, people left them alone. So they didn't have to do anything other than even Roy Keane used to say that the presence of Vieira in the tunnel was enough to get the hackles up on his back. So fun enough, you know, if you go out frightened of the physicality of the team you're playing, then you've almost lost the game straight away. So there's no harm in having. I know we all like these centre backs like Ben White that are touch players and they can play in midfield, but there's nothing wrong in having a good centre back, and there's nothing wrong in having a big centre forward who, you know, you got to have a plan B in every team, you know. And if plan B doesn't work, you get to plan C, plan D. And as we did during the final, Tim looked at me and he said, "I heard you shouting so loudly, I realised we were on plan E."
Guendouzi is already sold for 7 million. No, he's still our player.
He's still our player, as far as I know.
No, here he's not being sold. Not being sold. Russ Morgan says Arteta is too quick to alienate players.
He does, and we've said this. You know, if you work in education, and some of these are not, some of these have left school at 16 and they haven't really matured. And you know, kids will front you up and do all kinds of things because their mates are around, or they'll just get, you know, they see the red mist, and as we saw, Guendouzi grabbed the Brighton player by the throat. You know, those things happen. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. But if you start making an issue of it, then you've lost whatever relationship you've had with that person. So you've got to, yes, you've got to say it's wrong, but then leave it at that and talk to the player a day or two afterwards and talk about how we can avoid that happening again. You know, it's a tough game out there. You're being screamed and shouted at by, you know, if it's a full stadium, 60,000 people, and suddenly, I forget the guy's name, but do you remember the guy, you know, slammed into our goalkeeper and did all kinds of stuff? And, you know, I could see Guendouzi, like any player, would be getting angry and angrier, but you can't start lifting your hands, and that's got to be a golden rule. And in all sports, you don't lift your hand. And here in from what I can see as well, you know, you can't even start effing and blinding. So and so be it. Just control yourself, crying out loud. Enjoy the game. It's a physical game, but don't start, you know, swearing and grabbing people. That's nothing to do with sport, and it should be out of it.
Isaac, it says here from Russ Morgan, Arteta is too quick to alienate players. You agree with that, don't you, Isaac? Oh, Isaac's communication is gone. Let me go to the next one then.
He's got up that tube. Somebody pressed the button.
Arteta doesn't like clay to mold into mud. He wants a finished mug. All he has to do is paint it. Is that true? I think he likes to mold players. I understand what you're saying, DWTT. Is that right, Tel? He doesn't like clay to mold into a mug?
I can see what he's saying. I suppose because he's frightened of his job, you know, and he wanted to sort of lay down the law. But he really needed, what Arteta needs is an experienced coach alongside him who would have said to him, "I'll deal with this. I'll deal with it." Because Arteta was obviously furious and he ripped him, you know, tore him off a strip, got him out of the club as soon as he could. You'd have been much better off with somebody who's seen that situation many, many times as your assistant manager or coach or whatever you want to call it. And he'd say, "I'll deal with this," and let him front it up. That way you haven't lost face. And it's, you know, teamwork is everything in management. And all our most recent top managers have had a good deputy or a good coach alongside them. So it's such a shame that Arteta seems to have, dare I say it, a lot of minions around him, an awful lot of minions. But I'd like to see him have a stronger personality and perhaps an older guy alongside him who could have stepped in there and said, I'll deal with this. Because, you know, if you see the head coach or manager, whatever you want to call them, if you see them getting angry, that's your job. If you're the support coach, your job is to step in and not allow it to accelerate into a big problem. And that's what's happened. What could have been sorted out has accelerated into a big problem. And it was all over the newspapers and so on. That's unnecessary.
Well said, Charles. Well said.
Yeah.
Russ says, I don't want... Yeah, he's got some problems with the International Space Station. I don't want Henry anywhere near our manager's position unless he proves himself elsewhere first. I don't want
absolutely.
I don't want to manage Arsenal at all, Tel. I don't want to manage.
No, I mean, I was thinking back to, you know, lots of top England teams that have been around over the years, and very few of the players came through as being good managers. If you take the '66 team, you know, none of them really, apart from Jack Charlton, who wasn't a great player, and he became a great manager of the Irish team. But most of the rest of them, you know, Jeff Hurst, no. Roger Hunt, no. You know, you go through the team, Bobby Charlton, no. You go through the team, and it's difficult to find. It's a whole different thing about being a good player and a good coach or teacher. Well, you and I know that. You can be a wonderful mathematician, but struggle to teach people maths. It's a different vibe, you know.
Yeah. Isaac, are you with us? He's got some problems. Isaac, are you with us? You got some problems with the Wi-Fi connection?
Yeah, I'm back. There was a bit of a problem.
But you know what LTL's going to say in it? What's something to do with the submarine? Isaac, one of the comments in the chat said that Arteta is too quick to alienate players. You would agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it just that is management skills. So if he improves on that, he's a great manager. And I was reading there, someone says Arteta wants something that is ready-made just to pay it.
Yeah.
I like to politely disagree with him because he's good in developing youthful players. That is why he's developing a team of youthful players.
Okay. There's another comment here in regards to something you said before, Isaac. It's coming from the SM board. He says, Isaac, Arteta has been a manager stroke coach for 2 to 3 years. Guardiola was Barcelona's B team coach for 1 season, and he took over the first team. Management comes down to common sense. Thoughts?
Even Guardiola has been beaten in games because of overthinking. For instance, the Champions League final. Personally, as a manager myself, I can deduce where he made mistakes. Going in with only attacking midfielders, he didn't have a holding midfielder, knowing he was going to play a Chelsea team that is very compact in the midfield. So every manager makes mistakes. Arteta has made his, number one being selling Martinez, but he's corrected it with buying Ramsdale, because Ramsdale ranks second in collecting high cross balls to Martinez. So he's correcting his own doings. So give him time. Now he has his own team. If he doesn't perform in the next 2 seasons, I hold up my hands and say, well, now do what you want. But now that imagine he has his whole team now and you sack him. he hasn't done anything yet.
Okay. Ross Morgan goes on to say, I doubt Arteta would admit to doing anything wrong. Then follows up by saying that Marseille might have an obligation to buy with Guendouzi. I think they do, but Guendouzi is still an Arsenal player. He's not been sold. He's still ours. Gary says Guendouzi needs to meet some criteria, and it's an automatic sell. Oh dear. He's been a captain for the team, so chances are he will be gone. Do you think he's going to be gone? Tell?
No. The only person I know whose obligation to buy clause is Mavropanos. He's the only person I know has an option to buy. But Guendouzi and Saliba, I don't think that clause was inserted in their loan contracts. The only person I'm sure is Mavropanos.
Okay, I stand corrected. Tell, do you think he'll eventually be sold to Marseille, Guendouzi?
Yeah, I think Arteta can't save face really now. He's just not the kind of guy for that, and I think he will let him go. And then he'll hope and pray that he doesn't meet us in some match and scores the sort of winning goal against us, So I mean, I never took offence at work. I mean, Guendouzi was a silly boy, wasn't he? For crying out loud, it was stupid. Do you know what? If you really want to start a fight, the last place to start is on a football pitch, because you are going to be pulled apart by your own players, kept separate. So it was a gesture. It was a gesture. Oh, I'm upset. You've done me wrong. Well, you pull him aside and quietly on his own say, son, it's time to grow up, because if you really wanted to fight, it's a whole different ball game. So I think Arteta, I think you're quite right. Arteta doesn't strike me as being the kind of guy who's going to, eat humble pie and swallow his pride. And I think Guendouzi's gone, and it may be a shame. We may find, but do you know what? Having said that, there's always a danger, even at 28, he'll suddenly see the red mist, and it'll all start again,
Ross Morgan says, I think most managers could have done well with that Barcelona team Pep had. William Hooper says, Evening gents, I hope you're all well. Alex, 2-0 to the Arsenal. Good to see Captain Vieira back. Come on, you Gunners. I'm going for a 2-2 draw myself. That doesn't really matter. Saka isn't a good example. He's improved under Unai Emery and Arteta. I believe he's a special player that would produce anywhere in England. Emerson Rowe has shown growth, but Martinelli, Willock, Eddie Nketiah, Intimate and Niles. Isaac.
I like to say that when you look at Saka is naturally talented. Excuse me. Is naturally talented, very young, can play in multiple positions. When you look at Maitland, he can also play in multiple positions. He himself wants to play in the midfield. But when West Bromwich went for relegation, his manager actually said, if I was Maitland, I'll play wherever Arteta tells me to play. Because with him, he set his mentality, he wants to play in the midfield. He doesn't want to play, for instance, as a right back. And I've seen him produce as a right back. He's superb. He can do well as a right back. There are players who've been converted from right backs from several positions to other positions. There are players who've been converted from midfielders to defenders, and they have done exceptional. So if your manager has seen you have potential in a certain area, it is good to try. If I may give an example, I have someone in my team who plays number 10, number 6, number 8, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. But I've come to learn that he plays best as a number 2, and he accepts being placed in number 2, and he tries his best And wherever he makes a mistake, he asks, "Coach, where do I improve?" That is someone you want to keep. Someone who accepts to play in that positions and asks where he has to improve. So when you look at Martinelli, he's unfortunate. He's a gem, but his injuries are costing him. You look at Willock, you look at AD. Willock is more of someone who wants to be not before the pass, but after the pass. He has some poaching instinct. He's not someone who's going to play like the Ozil or like Odegaard. He's someone who's going to play more of a number 10. And if you keep him in, he'll be competing with Emile Smith in number 10 position. You can also play Odegaard in number 10 position. So he'll have minimal game time. When you look at Eddie, I don't know what is happening with him. He's been playing well in some games. Particularly last season, there were games that he was so good. I don't know what is happening to him. There are talents, and some or most managers will put their hope on some talents, but not all talents will work out. We have to understand. And something that before I forget, I like to tell the fan base, the only sport that I've come to know is full of emotion is football. Football is full of emotion, unlike all the other sports. So I understand the frustrations where there are frustrations, and it also unites all of us. You can imagine you're all the way in UK. Airtel is in where you are, Godfather, right now? Ireland.
I'm in County Clare in the west of Ireland.
West of Ireland. I'm in Kenya, but we are all here because of football. This is something that has united a great number of people. It doesn't have to separate anybody. Football, anything that happens in the pitch, let it end there. At the end of the day, we are all brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell very quickly about players converting from different positions. George Graham, didn't he change?
Yeah,
was he?
He was when he first came to us. He was a centre forward, and he had this amazing ability to jump and hang in the air and nod the ball into the net. And then they converted him into midfield. They called him Stroller because he was a little bit on the slow side. But the one I must tell you, because I know it's your favourite player, I think I've mentioned this before, but if nobody's heard this story, it's well worth listening to. Talking about we're playing Palace today. I went down as a young fella to Crystal Palace when Arsenal were playing them. Right about Christmas time one year, and the team came out and they announced that centre forward was going to be Liam Brady because of injuries. Oh, and I thought, what is this going to be like? So out comes Liam, all 5'7.5" of him, small little frame on him, and it was atrocious. It was unbelievably bad. And I thought, because everybody knew by this time the guy was a fantastic player. But thank God, obviously Don Howe, I guess, was running the team, or Terry Neal. They must have thought, well, that's definitely not worked out. And they brought him back into midfield and put someone else up front. So, you can have the most wonderful player, but if you play them in the wrong position, then it doesn't work out. And I have heard recently that Ainsley Maitland-Niles is beginning to realise, and he should do, that he got picked for England at fullback. Arsenal wanted him to play fullback, and he's wound his neck in a little bit. I've begun to think, well, I may enjoy playing central midfield, but actually, I've got the set of skills that makes me a very, very good fullback. And if he played for England, that's not easy to get picked for the England team at fullback. So I hope he continues to just quieten down. I know he's had all kinds of trouble. His mum used to cause all kinds of trouble at the training ground. God bless her, and she used to get kind of thrown out and that. And I think he's just got to calm down. He's got a wonderful career. He's earning a king's ransom. Play fullback, please, Ainsley, and that way we've got Tomiyasu and him on the right hand side, sorted for the next 6 or 7 years.
Brilliant. Right, so I'm going to quickly read through his last comments. That Will M. Hooper says, Guendouzi won't play for us anymore. A massive mistake on our manager's behalf, all because of a supposed attitude problem. Where was the proof of this? Also, Saliba has been mismanaged atrociously. And then the Assemble says, Isaac, apparently he developed Sterling. What I'd like to know is, how do you give someone something that isn't already there? That is like an explorer discovering something that is already there. Thoughts very quickly, Isaac. Did he develop Sterling? Did he help develop Sterling?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, okay.
He's been given credit for helping to develop Sterling. Let's give credit.
Arsene Wenger used to say you can do an awful lot with young players in developing their skills, but the one thing you can't give them is pace. So if they haven't got pace, that's the end of that. And I remember Ian Wright. People may forget that when Ian Wright first joined us, although he was a great goal scorer, his first touch was poor, very, very poor. But incrementally, over the next 2 or 3 seasons, that touch with both feet got better and better and better. And by the end of, his time at Arsenal, you wouldn't have noticed that poor first touch. So you can improve that, because Ian came into the game late. So his touch probably wouldn't have had work on it that would have happened if he'd have been a youth player. And talking about Guardiola, Guardiola always says that you can't win a game unless your team are as skillful as the opposition. It's only then that you can look at tactics. So Arteta's trying to buck that trend now, and trying, instead of buying big money players, trying to buy them as young players when they're in their early 20s. And then what we're looking at, if Arteta's project works, is that by the time our 22 and 23-year-olds are in roughly approaching their mid-20s, then we might have a formidable team. But of course, he didn't bargain with the Saudi money coming in and blowing it all apart. And on that, what's the chances of Unai becoming Newcastle's next manager, eh?
Oof. That's put the cat amongst the pigeons. Isaac, very quickly, you was going to say about Arteta developing Sterling.
Yeah, let's give credit where it's due. Let's not only focus on the bad, we can focus on the good side. The last time I was in the show, Alex, on the Easy Talk, I said, if we look at the back line, okay, let's say from position 1 to position 5, they have only conceded 1 goal. The ones that Arteta has signed, they've only conceded 1 goal. So he's trying to build from his defense. That is what he was doing last season, building from defense. And there's something I said probably last year in one of our shows, that yes, strikers will win you games, but the defense will win you trophies. If you have a good defense, you will win trophies because you won't be conceding silly goals. And yes, if you don't concede silly goals and your strikers are firing, then you are title contenders. So he's building from the back. He's building on players who are athletic. He's building on players who have talent. He's building on players who want to play for Arsenal, who feel they are happy at Arsenal. You cannot play someone who's not happy. You'll rather let them go.
Yeah.
You keep someone who's happy to play in the club or feels that he belongs. Actually, the term I'll use is play someone who feels they belong. If someone feels they don't belong, then you cut them loose.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Isaac. Nketiah has never been good enough, apparently, according to Russ Morgan. Goes on to say that Manu Petit was a left back, but Wenger converted him into one of the best central midfielders in Europe. Got Don Arthur says hello, hello. But it's more like goodbye, goodbye, because we're almost done here. Let's hope Saka is around to play with the 23 to 26-year-olds. That will improve under Arteta. I fear he may go. Do you think he will go? Tell Saka.
Well, you know what? I have read that some of the richest clubs are looking at him and thinking of making an offer, as the Godfather would say, that can't be refused. So don't be surprised if a team that plays in black and white stripes offers a world record for him. Don't be surprised, because there's no holds barred now. Whoever goes in there, dear old Steve Bruce, I love the guy. He's such an honest guy. He has suffered so much on Twitter. Do you know, I read a quote the other day that he said, I've suffered so much with abuse that I'm happy that my parents aren't still alive to hear their son abused so much. That is a disgrace. That's what the Twitter sphere and so on can do to a person. Absolutely awful. But yes, there is a real danger now that Saka may be the subject of an eye-watering bid. And will Arsenal hold on to him, or will Mr. Stanley Kroenke say, well, you know, money talks?
Yeah, absolutely, well said. The last one from the Conversation Club: Arsenal won't sack Arteta. Yeah, I think they've said at KSC. They said they're not going to be trigger happy in regards to Arteta's position. Guys, we're finished on this the sixth segment of the Canon project. A really delightful debate, but I'm not sure if have we been sold actually with Thierry Henry? Would you like to see Thierry Henry manage Arsenal? Personally, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to see him. No, sorry.
No,
anyway,
never.
guys, listen, thank you for coming on this segment of the Canon project. Isaac, thank you so very much. We've got to talk actually. When we go off here, I've got to make you an offer that you might not be able to refuse. LTL, the Godfather himself, making mountless offers to everyone. Not that they actually survived the offer.
As you can see, I'm just about to go on the stage at the London Palladium at 7:30 tonight. So I'll be singing all your favourites, you know, from 1970s forwards, you know, and I'll be signing autographs at the stage door afterwards.
So quickly, prediction for tonight.
Well, it's funny you should say 2-2. Do you know what? I think Palace are going to give a good show. I do think Arsenal will get there. I think, if anything, the sort of crowd, the home crowd, will pull us home. But so I would go for 2-1. But your 2-2 is an interesting one. It could all go belly up, and if luckily we haven't got Guendouzi to start grabbing people around the throat. But so I'll go for a 2-1 to Arsenal.
All right, and Isaac, is 2-0 for you.
2-0. Apparently, everybody's going for 2. So Arsenal must score 2.
Okay.
And then we prevent them scoring.
All right, guys. Well, anyway, thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed this segment of the Canon project. Again, delightful debate to be had on a Monday evening. We're going to kick off in just shortly of an hour and 10 minutes time. Yeah, Arsenal back in action against the Eagles. Yeah, our London rivals. Are they our rivals? No, I don't think so. They're not our rivals. Not our rivals. But anyway, guys, next time you'll see will be tomorrow afternoon. Give some more live segment news on Canon TV. So from LTEL, the Godfather himself, and from my good brother Isaac, just around the corner in the. Where are you? In Kenya? Where it's cold.
Yeah,
It's cold.
Kenya. Very cold.
Cold in Kenya.
Very, very cold.
All right, and just to remind you guys, please stay safe. Subscribe to Cannon Fodder TV, and just a reminder actually that you have been watching Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this.